Hello everybody, welcome back to Wolfeei. Today we're going to be looking at my MCC 2024 predictions. I took a pretty long time to prepare stuff for this, at least in relation or in comparison to past MCC events. By the way, in the background right now we're looking at MCC Party, the watch party we did for MCC Party. Just to have some background gameplay. Also, I think MCC Party is a fitting event to have, running in the background for the predictions because it'll be relevant. Anyways, I did about 2 hours, I think, of preparing, maybe 3. I think it was 2.5 hours of preparing. I wrote down 2 documents, my hopes and my predictions for MCC Season 4. By the way, for MCC Season 4, I'm assuming that it'll only last for a year, that it'll just last throughout 2024, rather than like Season 2, where it's a 2-year span. I'm just assuming 1 year, just 2024, that's it. Anyways, I'll just pull up the document so I know what I'm talking about. This is my hopes page, this is my predictions. On the left, we have my hopes. On the right, we have my predictions. Disclaimer, my hopes are most certainly copium. There is almost no way that all of them will happen. I would be even surprised if half of them happen. It's just what I would like to see for MCC, and this doesn't have to be, I say have to be. This is just in general things I would like to see now, and then over time, hopefully, depending on if people agree with it, it could be implemented over time. Anyways, on the left, my hopes, on the right, my predictions. I think we'll start with my hopes, then do the prediction to compare. I don't really know how to exactly format this entire thing. Also, this will take a little bit, so get your snacks ready, etc. Also, today is daily December day number 18, and most requested, most anticipated Wolfeei's video. Anyways, the legend on both sides is the exact same. They're very similarly formatted, so we can just go by one by one. Why do I get an ad in the middle of this? Like, what? Frick you, YouTube, with your stupid system. Now I have to open up both of these again. Anyways, the legend on the left. We'll start with the left one. My hopes. General is just general updates that don't really fit a certain category, or they are specific where they don't deserve their own category, so they're kind of grouped together. Updates is about the games and stuff like that, which is obviously a topic that a lot of people have talked about. Events talks about how many events I think they'll host, how frequently they'll host them, and whether there's going to be a lot of non-canons or canon events, etc. And then players and teams talks about some of the players, the newcomers, and maybe some combinations of people that we could expect to see in Season 4, according to my opinion. Anyways, starting off on the left, Legend General starts. There you go. Season 4 break lasts until April to give more time for updates. MCC 36 on April 20th. That's my hope. I want MCC to take a little bit more time to work on either updates for the first returning event or for updates to introduce later on in the season, just to give themselves a bit more time to prepare and to make the return of MCC feel a bit more grand. Than just being like, hey guys, we're back. I think it'd be fine if they don't take an extra month, but I would personally like to see them return in April. I would be okay with MCC being on break for a little bit longer than the past 2 times. And then what I think will happen, what I think will happen is that the break will last until mid/late March, and I think MCC 36 will probably be on the 16th or the 23rd of March. And I heard, or I read somewhere, I think it was either Reddit or Discord, that supposedly it was confirmed, in quotations, that the break wouldn't last that long. So that's why it inspired me to say that the event would probably return in mid/late March, which I think is pretty realistic, and that's fine. Then next up, canon team balancing varies with stronger Russes like Season 3 is my hope. I hope that the balancing of teams, I guess I could have put this in players and teams, but I hope the competitiveness of the event stays relatively the same. It'd be nice if it was lower, but that's just not very realistic. So I hope it stays similar to Season 3. And then what I think will happen, as my prediction, is that I think canon MCCs will remain high comp, and team balancing like MCC 30 and 35 will become more standard or more common, where you're going to have like a crazy roster in terms of balancing. Probably maybe half the time for canon events, maybe more frequently depending on how different the rosters are for the non-canon events. We'll get into that later as well. Then, my hopes to continue is, yes, this is for the final part of the general thing. My hopes is that Noxer focuses on the longevity of the event by slowly introducing significant updates to parts of the event that need it. Think of what people in the community often talk about, something like Meltdown getting like new rooms, or maybe games like Hole in the Wall or Parkour Tag getting looked into to see if something can be done to make them stand out a bit more and a bit more appealing for the players to play them and for the audience to watch them, or whatever, right? It's very vague, because I don't want to say specifically which game I think should get... Well, I mean, we'll get into that later as well. But, yeah, that's for later. Anyways, Noxer focuses on the longevity event by slowly introducing significant updates to parts of the event to keep things fresh and to make things a little bit less stale. Paired with Scott actively adding newcomers to canon events and making the non-canon player rosters more unique, MCC will steadily continue forwards through 2024 and 2025. Regardless, I think MCC will move forward past Season 4 and into 2025. I know a lot of people in the community are wondering whether Season 4 will be the last season for MCC. I don't think so. MCC is the advertisement for MCC Island, and MCC Island is relatively new. There's not really a reason for them to just suddenly stop hosting MCCs, because they need that advertisement for MCCI. So I think it'll stay around regardless, but I think it'll be a lot more recognized by the community if things are updated both on the in-game and on the player side. In-game for the active player base or viewer base, to give them, the new content that they want, because they like the current player base, so they don't really care too much about newcomers besides maybe your occasional speedrunner or lifesteal member. And then newcomer editions by Scott to bring in maybe the not so very active MCC viewer base, or bring them back or whatnot, just to keep that side of the community also, or pique their interest frequently, and most importantly, making the non-canon player rosters more unique will make the non-canon events stand out more, as what was apparent in 2023 and Season 3. Some of the non-canon events that were hosted this year had very similar rosters to regular canon events, which made the events feel less unique, despite how different the in-game content was. So that's my hopes for this year. My prediction will be that Noxer focuses on longevity of the event by slowly introducing significant updates to parts of the event. Same thing that I wrote on the left. I think Scott will add some of the long-requested newcomers to canon MCC events with a slight focus on mid-tier and lower-tier players to balance out some of the stronger newcomer additions, like a Curryway, like maybe a Feinberg or a Radunes, or maybe even myself. Getting those people in the roster is great, and obviously a lot of people have been asking for that for a while, but you need to balance it out. Also, my music just kind of is quiet. There we go. Oh my god. Okay. Anyways, you need to balance out the additions of stronger newcomers with some of lesser skilled newcomers, as just adding stronger newcomers will make the event be very quickly increasing in skill level and competitiveness. So you need to find a balance. Anyways, that is general. So that's the first part done. Also the smallest part. Moving on. Updates. Okay, let's get to the updates. My hopes are that most games get significantly updated throughout Season 4, so not just for the first event back. This can be done by updating the core gameplay or experimenting further with remixes and possibly reintroducing some past remixes. Remixes that could be looked into again, for example, are the Battle Box one, or maybe the Hole in the Wall one, whichever ones are the ones that were the most successful, could be looked into to happen again. Obviously, Hole in the Wall had, I think, the Scuffed remix was reintroduced for an event later, and it didn't work as well just because of the more competitive nature of a canon event, but there's other remixes that can be revisited, and hopefully new remixes can be introduced, as I think they do make the games feel more unique without having to make a new game or by having to make the core gameplay very different. It's just a way that you can experiment with features with a low risk compared to changing the game and then having to revert it back. But I also hope that the core gameplay of some of the games at least do get updated significantly, just to make them more unique, make them more fresh, and keep the games that are already existing interesting for either the active players and the active viewers, and etc. Obviously, not everything should be completely flipped on its head, because that's a bit too significant, but I think to start, or maybe a couple games can be, flipped a little bit, and then you can look into further changing other games. Specifics I will not provide, because I also don't know any specifics. This is obviously, I'm not part of the docs crew. I'm sure that they can figure something out, maybe, but yeah, I would like to see some significant updates. And then what I think will happen is that most games will get updates in Season 4, and some of them will be significantly, some of those games will be significantly updated. There will be a couple of remixes and non-canon events, or in canon, there will be a couple of remixes in canon events, but they'll mostly appear in the non-canon events, which makes sense because of how experimental remixes can be. It makes more sense to put them in a non-canon event than it does in a canon event, as canon events are just more competitive. So that's that. Yeah, I think for the most part, my hopes will be fulfilled, probably. Obviously, I'm just saying what I want to see, but I think it's pretty in line with what could potentially happen. So yeah, that's that. Next up, the specific games. Oh no, wait, we have one more. My hopes are that there's 2 new games introduced, one at the start of the year and one in the second half of 2024, around September time. What I actually think will happen is that there will be 1 new game introduced in the middle of the year, and that the other focus of game updates will just go to the existing games to make them stand out more. And I think either of these options would be fantastic. So that'd be good. So yeah, there you go. Games are up next for I went over every single current game that's in rotation, and what on the wiki was said as current games. And I looked at every single one of them and said what I think might happen. So here we go. Ace Race. I hope there's a new map, whether that is a brand new map or a reworked version of Python script, as I personally really like Python script. And I hope that they reintroduce Turtle Run with some more alternative sections like they did in MCC 30. Not super much, but I know that Ace Race maps do take a long time to make. Thus, I only think 1 new map is reasonable, and then the rest of the focus could be on Turtle Run sections, or maybe even Yeti's Head Go sections, depending on how they want to approach it. Then I think what will happen is that they will have a new map, and they will probably revisit Turtle Run with some alternate sections. I don't know if they'll necessarily make the new map or a revamped map of Python script, but I think they'll have a new map probably in the later end of the year. Not sure what the theme would be. I'm not going to predict that either, because that'll probably just mean that it wouldn't happen if I say what I think it's going to be. Battle Box is up next. My hopes is that there's multiple new maps and / or updated versions of some of the OG maps. Experiment more with different types of kits and combat, but avoid shields unless they have very low durability. This is just a way to make Battle Box a little bit more unique, as I think it's a good game now, but it's always, it doesn't hurt to experiment from time to time. These could be remixes added to Battle Box with different types of remixes, except for the Trident one, or maybe something else. I think it's, multiple new maps make sense. I think that's what's going to happen. I think I put that here too. Yeah, I think there's going to be multiple new maps for Battle Box. I don't know if they'll do updated versions of OG maps, and I don't really know if they'll experiment with different types of kits in combat. But I think there will be at least 1 or 2 of the new maps will probably have some slight uniqueness in terms of the kit, or in terms of the kits that are available to alter the gameplay. Next up, Build Mart. I think Build Mart might appear, or I hope Build Mart is thrown into canon events once or twice, maybe with a slight gameplay tweak, possibly remixed. Not really sure what else they could do. I know they did Sands of Mart once, which I still don't really know what Sands of Mart was. I think it was just a reskin of the map, I think. Right? Wasn't it just a map, essentially? I could be wrong, by the way. Oh, and there was, like, mobs, I think, or something like that. So that was interesting. But maybe they can think of another remix, or maybe not. This is definitely one that I think is not super, super appealing to a lot of people. But I think Build Mart's fine, and I like the uniqueness it brings to the game roster. Next up, what I think will happen for Build Mart, my prediction, is that it only appears in the non-canon MCCs, and it won't really be reworked for a canon reintroduction. It doesn't really seem like they are willing to give it a try right now. Or at least I feel like it wouldn't really be worth it. If they were to rework the game, they might as well make a new game that's similar-ish in gameplay, but just focuses on a different theming, and just give it a new name, because the name Build Mart is just disliked by some people. People have not great fond memories of it. So, I don't know. Next up, bingo. My hope is that it remains as is right now, with every appearance having a unique board and map, which is what they're currently doing, and I'm pretty sure that's the exact same with my prediction. Yeah, I hope that it remains as is right now, with every appearance having a unique board and map. I just agree with that, yeah. Well, I guess we already have the next part. Grade Runners consistently, I hope that it's consistently updated with new content as right now, maybe a big batch of new rooms for first event back if possible. I know that Grade Runners is one of the games that is pretty hard to consistently update, just because of how much effort goes into every single room that needs to be made. But hey, maybe if they find the time for it, or have a bunch of good ideas, they could try adding a bunch of new content for the first event back, or maybe not. I think what they'll actually do is that they'll consistently update it with new content as they are doing right now, which I think is good. Then next up is Hole in the Wall. My hope for Hole in the Wall is that it is kept in rotation frequently. I am biased. And maybe given a new map with unique floor patterns, or new maps with unique floor patterns. I think some of the maps they added to MCCI are pretty interesting, but maybe they can find a way to make it more unique. Obviously, that won't be super effective for most players. I think they won't really care too much about new maps. But I think it is interesting to have a different floor pattern for every time that Hole in the Wall is played. I think, just making the gameplay even slightly altered can be fun from time to time. I think what they'll do for Hole in the Wall is that it will not be in rotation as often, as it's hard to significantly update, with exception for the floors. And then maybe new maps with the unique floors could allow it to stay in rotation somewhat frequently, but I think it's unlikely. I think it'll end up just not being in rotation that much, which is okay. I mean, it'll be sad for me because I'm a Hole in the Wall enjoyer, but I think it's fine overall. I think a lot of the community would not mind that. Next up, Meltdown. My hopes are that they add some new rooms to give the game a fresh feel, and maybe they throw in a remix with some experimental features one time. I don't really know what type of remix you could do for Meltdown. It could be a cosmetic remix to just make things feel different, or it could be just a gameplay remix where maybe freezing works differently. Maybe it's Meltdown remix, but they take out the heaters, so once you get shot, that's it. Probably wouldn't work as well, but just something, maybe something. I know a lot of the community is tired of Meltdown. I still like it personally. I think it's a very good game. I think it looks really cool, but I can understand why some people don't really like it. Then for Meltdown, what I think will happen is that they'll add some new rooms. I don't really think they're going to expand very much on Meltdown, because it's not like a problematic game right now. It's not really a problem for them. It's doing pretty decent. I mean, there is the whole spawning next to good teams unlucky part that sucks for half the roster every single time, and then the other half has a great time. That's the problem with Meltdown. It's similar to survival games, where half the lobby will dislike it just because they aren't able to play the game, and the other half will love it because they got to play the game, if that makes any sense. Okay, next up, Parkour Tag. My hopes is that it gets a new map and that it isn't in rotation as often for canon events. I hope it moves mostly to non-canon events, as it seems more newcomer or non-Minecrafter friendly than Parkour Warrior. I don't know what I did here. Parkour Warrior, there you go. Yeah, I think it's a fun game. I think it's a good game, but I think having both Parkour Tag and Parkour Warrior in the same event feels a little bit much sometimes. So I hope it doesn't happen that often. I do hope it gets a new map just to give it a fresh feel, and I hope it just appears in the non-canon events more frequently. As like I said, I think it appeals to the non-canon players a bit more, or the non-Minecrafters rather, a bit more than something like Parkour Warrior. I think Parkour Warrior would not be a fan favorite for the non-Minecrafters at least. And then what I think will happen for Parkour Tag is that it will get a new map at some point in 2024, and it will just be less frequently in rotation. It just makes sense. So yeah. Next up, Parkour Warrior. My hopes is that it gets frequent additions of new levels, and that those levels don't really appear on MCCI, at least not before they are played in the event. My least favorite part of Parkour Warrior in the event is that some sections are just the same as MCCI, and it personally makes me less interested in watching it, as I've seen those levels get played by myself from my own perspective plenty of times, so it doesn't really appeal to me much, even if, Fruitberries flawlesses it or Purpled flawlesses it. I don't really care. Except for the heart section. The heart section is cool, but that's not a thing on MCCI for the most part. Or the hard finish, rather. Then, what I think will happen for Parkour Warrior is that there will be frequent additions of new levels that will also appear on MCCI. I hope, like I said on the left, that this one should not be don't appear. I mean, it'd be nice if there was levels exclusive to the event, but I think that's just not very likely to happen. It'd be nice if when they do add levels or new levels to Parkour Warrior, that they appear first in the event and then on Island, because it just gives certain players an advantage, because certain players do play Island frequently, whereas other players don't. And you don't really want, playing Island to be a requirement to do well, I guess, at a parkour game. It's not a requirement, but, a significant boost of performance. Next up, Rocket Spleef Rush. My hopes is that there's some new maps. That's it. I don't really want Rocket Spleef Rush to be altered further than that. I just want to see new maps, just somewhere throughout 2024. I don't think it's super urgent right now for them to add new maps. I think it'd be completely fine if they came back and there was nothing done to Rocket Spleef Rush at all. Even for 2 events, they could do nothing. I think Rocket Spleef Rush is in a very good position right now, and I just hope that at some point they add some stuff. And then my prediction is that they'll do probably either 2 or 3 new maps throughout Season 4. I looked back, and I think from what I saw, all the maps in Rocket Spleef Rush right now, I think there was 2 or 3 new maps added for Season 3. So I think they'll do probably the same thing again. So yeah, that's that. Then next up, Sands of Time. My hopes is that they make some new rooms and a slight makeover to the game to make it feel fresh. SOT right now is still a very good game. The core gameplay of SOT is very good, but it has looked the same and felt the same and supposedly played the same for a while. So it'd be nice if there was some slight changes made to it to, keep things fresh. I'm not saying that everything should be changed, because that's a lot of stuff that would have to be worked on. But I think maybe a handful of new rooms and a slight makeover of the spawn room or maybe more parts of the map could be interesting. I think it wouldn't hurt. I do understand if they don't do it though, because it's not super urgent. I think what they'll do is they'll add some new rooms at some point. That's just what makes sense. All right, next up, Sky Battle. My hope is that they have 1 or maybe more new maps, that's why it's in between brackets, that are more like the old Sky Battle maps, which mentioning classic medieval Candyland. That feel of Sky Battle is very nostalgic and just felt right. I feel like recent Sky Battle hasn't felt as good as old Sky Battle did. I'm not exactly sure why, but I'm assuming that the map is mostly involved with that. I also think the MCCI item introduction didn't help super much, but I think they already know that. So yeah, I hope there's some new maps that are like the old maps. Not saying that the old maps should be brought back, but yeah, I hope that whenever they make a new map, it's more like that. What I think they'll do is they'll make 1 or 2 new maps. I don't really know how long it takes to make a Sky Battle map, but I think they're going to have at least 1, maybe 2. I don't think they're going to have more than 2 new ones, though, which is totally fine. Then next up, my hopes is that Survival Games is in rotation for half the canon events, and that's about it. I don't really think it makes... I mean, I guess it could be in rotation for the non-canon still. I feel like it makes a bit more sense in the canon events, but I guess there's an argument to be made for both sides. It just feels a little bit weird to include the all-or-nothing game into the more for-fun-oriented events, but whatever. And then what I think they'll do is that Survival Games will be in rotation for some of the non-canon events and maybe one of the canon events, which I think would be good. So yeah, nice. And then next up, the final one, I think, no, second to last, because there's also Dodgebolt. I hope that To Get to Your Side is not in rotation very often, unless the MCC maps appear less frequently, and we see stuff like Terra Swoop Force probably like maybe like guarantee a Terra Swoop Force tunnel, and then swap between 1, 2, and maybe introduce a later one if possible. I personally am not a fan of To Get to Your Side. I've already said this in, I think, in videos before. It's just my least favorite game in MCC right now. And it's very much my opinion, and I don't really think a lot of people share that opinion, but that's just what I want to see. What I think they'll do, my prediction, is that they'll have some new maps, but I don't think the game is going to be much different compared to Season 3, and that's okay. That's fine. Then, finally, Dodgebolt. I think Dodgebolt is good as is, and my prediction is that they'll mostly keep Dodgebolt the same, and maybe they'll throw in a new remix for one of the non-canon events. You know, it could be just a makeover, like a cosmetic change, or it could be like a significant change, like the snowmen from last event in, I think, the 20v20 Dodgebolt that acted like barriers, I think. Anyways, that is that. Let me make this thing a little bit smaller so we can go to the next section, which is events, and just have a bit more oversight. Events, there you go. Let me also go here to events. Events, there you go. All right. We can just do that. Oh, frick. What did I do? Okay. Oh, there you go. Well, my hope is that they'll do a 50-50 split of canon and non-canon events, and what I think they'll do is a 50-50 split of canon and non-canon events. I understand that some people have said, I think it's on Reddit mostly, like, oh, we want more canon events, not another non-canon event. Look, let me be real. The non-canon events are what's keeping MCC the most interesting right now. The canon events are just there for, you know, the players to still be able to play the event without having to wait, like, frequently. And I think it's important to have canon events if you were to make the non-canon event rosters more unique, because there's people that obviously want to play, and it's only fair if there's something that they can do. So yeah, that's my take on that. We'll get into the non-canon events as well very soon, but that's that. Yeah, here I think they'll do 6 canon events and 6 non-canon events. It's the same on both sides. I think my hopes are going to line up with what they're doing. This is one thing that I will give the Noxer at least a lot of credit for Season 3. The mix of canon and non-canon events was great. It was fantastic, and I think the non-canon events they hosted were also great. So continue doing that. That was good. Big thumbs up for that. And I know that some of the players I spoke to were also very fond of that. So keep it up. Next up, non-canons. Oh yeah, this gets into the specific non-canons I think that will happen and when they might happen. My hopes are simple. I hope they do a Scuff 2 in April. I hope they do a Pride 2024 in June. That's just gonna happen no matter what. I hope it's early on though, because I hope they also do a Rivals in Europe, which hopefully will be, or TwitchCon EU should be early July, and I hope it's gonna be in the UK. And if it's in the UK, I think it's almost guaranteed that there will be a MCC there. But I think regardless, there's a high chance that there will be an MCC at TwitchCon EU this year, or 2024 rather, but it'll depend on if they'll also do one in NA again, and how much or how many non-canons they're already hosting, you know. So then I also hope there's going to be a Rising 3 in September. This one just makes sense. I think Rising's fun. I think there's still a lot of people that would be interested in playing in Rising, as was apparent from last event, that didn't make it in, who would make combined for a great Rising roster. And obviously you put in some proper viewer teams as well to make it balanced. And I think you could have something that's even better than Rising 2. Even though I thought Rising 2's roster was pretty cool. But there's some fan favorite requested players who I think would sign up for MCC Rising 3 in this case, who I do not think will be added to MCC beforehand. I think the only one from the highly requested players who would get added to MCC before September is probably Curryway, and maybe someone else, but I'm not sure. I hope there's going to be a Rivals NA in October, probably going to be on the 19th if it happens. And I hope there's an MCC Party 2 in November. I thought MCC Party was very good. Also, I do know I put something else here. If possible, I want to see MCC Underdogs 2. Look, it was just my favorite event in a long time. It's by far my favorite events that they've hosted in recent events, or in recent times, probably recent years, I guess. Just because of how unique the roster was, what the event was about, and just the experience was nice. It felt very fresh, because regardless of how, and this is very similar to my opinion on Block Wars Rookies, regardless of how similar the gameplay is, having a roster that is very significantly different and new than your usual roster just makes the experience unique. And it was great. I thought it was cool. Obviously, I'm also slightly biased because someone like Shane was obviously introduced there, and some of the more unique players like the Cyan team were in there. But regardless, MCC Underdogs 2 is probably my most requested, second most requested. Rivals EU is probably my most requested. MCC Underdogs 2 is my most requested event for MCC to run back. Don't know if they'll do it though. It would be very cool. What I think they'll do is everything I've already mentioned, except for Underdogs. I think my wish list will be very much in line with what they'll probably do, because like I said, this is something they nailed in Season 3, and I think they're going to continue doing very well in this part for the rest of 2024. Next up, the final part, players and teams. Oh, well, isn't that just an interesting topic to look at? Players and teams. Okay, my hopes for MCC Season 4 2024 in terms of players. I hope that some of the inactive players come back for an event, and after playing that event, some of them hopefully will become semi-active players again. Look, as much as I think it would be super cool to have a bunch, 10 to 20 newcomers, somewhere in that for 2024, and just freshen up the roster like that, bringing back some of the older players, whether that is some of the hermits that haven't played in a while, whether that is someone like Dan TDM or some of the pack members, and getting them to frequently play again would be great. And I hope that they somehow, I hope that there's a way that somehow happens. I think it's unlikely, but I hope it happens. Then I think to contrast, my prediction is that the current active player base will mostly stay active and intact. I think a few of the more casually oriented players might take a step back. Think of someone like a Jack Manifold, who I could see slowly losing interest in playing because his friend group, for the most part, is also not playing as much. I think someone like Tommy also might not really appear outside of the non-canon events anymore. Maybe he will. I just don't know. I don't want to name too many more names because it feels a little bit weird to say, like, hey, I think you're not going to play in MCC anymore. That doesn't make sense, right? Anyways, I hope that benching becomes a bit stricter and that some of the people who barely got benched in Season 3 get benched once every couple of events. Now, this should not be strict necessarily where you say, okay, you can only play 2 events max in a row and then the next one you have to be benched. No, that makes no sense, right? What I think should mostly be looked into is some of the certain skill levels that have a lot of players should be a little bit more equally benched. For example, S tiers, if you add a bunch of people, which we'll get into after this point, I think. if you add a bunch of newcomers, some of which we all know are going to be S tiers, A tiers, etc., you're going to want to still include them a lot while also not having to permanently bench some of the previous players. So what you'll have to do is you'll have to pretty much equally bench them. Whether that is one of, some of the people only get to play every other event, whether that means that, you get to play 2, you get benched, you get to play 2, you get benched in a cycle, and pretty much every player, falls under that. I don't know. I genuinely don't know how they would approach that, but yeah. I don't know if I do not discuss that here. Anyways, I hope that long requested duos like FBM and Joel or Calum and Cornelius also happen. I think that will happen as well. And then we get to the juicy part, newcomers. I know that a lot of you were probably waiting for this part. This is why I saved it for last. Save the best for last. Newcomer predictions. I should actually probably make this smaller because there's a lot of text to go over. Newcomers. Well, there you go. Newcomers are obviously a very relevant topic for MCC coming into 2024. It is the main thing people have been talking about in terms of keeping MCC interesting and in terms of staleness. It is just a fact that the same people have been playing MCC, especially in Season 3. Very few newcomers were added, and some of the newcomers that were added are one-time players. Or in terms of like non-canon events, there weren't that many newcomers aside from like Pride. So yeah. Anyways, let's begin. My hopes for newcomers in MCC Season 3, and this is the biggest point. Minecrafty Minecrafters. Now you might think, what the frick are you talking about, man? I think MCC, and this is probably arguable, but I think it's true. MCC is the Minecraft event. If you think of a Minecraft event, and most people will say MCC. Some people will say Minecraft Monday. A couple people might say Block Wars. A couple people might say Minecraft Ultimate. But the main one is going to be MCC. It's the one that most of the variety people know of, and it's also the one that most of the Minecrafters will know of. So they should play into that. This will be relevant for both canon events and non-canon events. The canon events should really lean into the Minecrafty Minecrafters, which includes, and is not limited to, hermits. Some of the hermits that I think would be, or that I hope will be added for MCC in Season 4 include Doc M77, Azuma Void, Tango Tech, and Mumbo. Obviously, the latter of the two, this group, Tango and Mumbo, are less likely, as I think they've either been asked for MCC or mentioned talking about MCC before and didn't seem convinced to want to play, or in Mumbo's case, declined the invite. But I still, regardless of whether I think they will play, I want to see them play. I need to take a sip of water. You can go take in the Hermits thing. By the way, these are just the Hermits that I could think of that seem to be relevant in terms of MCC. There's probably some others. I think Hypnotized might be another person who I've seen mentioned a lot. There's probably other people who would be relevant to be added to the event. I'm just not super familiar with Hermitcraft. So, yeah, I'm sure that you guys will know a lot more, especially on the YouTube side. Anyways, let me take my sip of water. That's the problem with these long videos. I'm so actively talking that I dehydrate. Anyways, then further on. More Minecrafty Minecrafters is the modern Minecraft YouTube scene. I think a couple people to name here are RecRab2, one of my main vouchers for MCC. He'd be such a unique player. Biggest problem with the modern Minecraft YouTubers is that they aren't as connected with the current player base, because that's just not what YouTube content is based on, and only some of them know some people. Cookie God is another person I think would be good. I think Cookie God is familiar with some of the SMP creators, because I think they were on an SMP together with, like, Scott and Becky, I think, and maybe Tubbo. So, Cookie God could make a very interesting addition. Radoons, obviously, is a highly requested newcomer as well, but I think he would make a good fit. He's very unique, and he would bring a new audience to the event. And then Laguno, he was in MCC Rising, but I still think he'd make a good addition. He was in my comment section, actually, once, or like a day or two ago, talking about potentially being interested in MCC, and potentially having some people who could vouch for him to get in. and I think that would be great. I think that would genuinely be a very good thing. Further on, more Minecrafters include skill-based streamers. I feel like this is a section that is important to highlight. Now, you might look at this and be like, why is this a section? It includes House Builder Gang, but also someone like Sandwich Lord, who I think would be good because he is kind of the modern day, like, cracked Minecrafter. You could say he's kind of the modern day Fruitberries, like what Fruitberries used to be to most people is kind of what Sandwich Lord is now. Fruit's still obviously a very great player, but in terms of just, you know, fresh faces, Sandwich Lord is the guy. Curryway obviously is a speedrunner who I would love to see in. And then Lewis Fulham, my good friend Lewis Fulham, I put him in this tier just because he's a speedrunner. But he also would you know, he's also someone who you could see as a more casual player, but he does try a lot. So also, Feinberg would be included here. However, I don't include Feinberg here because as much as I have no problem with Fein being added, right? I think it'd be cool if Fein was in MCC. There is a slight problem with Feinberg, and that is that he is just too good. Like, Block Wars, we're still yet to experiment with giving him properly weaker teams and seeing how that, you know, plays into how his performance goes. But MCC is... There's not, like, much wiggle room for someone like Feinberg, plus Purpled and Shane, to all get, like, properly balanced teams without making every other team insanely cracked. So, I as much as... And this would apply to Sandwich Lord as well, but yeah, I guess Feinberg would be on this list too. I'll just add Feinberg to those lists. But, yeah. He's just that good. He really is just that good. I think there's more. There's one more section, I think. Oh yeah, the SMPers. You got Soup for Eloise and you got Caliph. Let me skip this ad real quick. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, you got Eloise and Kyle, who I mentioned here. I think that Eloise is pretty much guaranteed to be added to the event in the first, like, half of the year. I think maybe Kyle could have a chance, but I'm not sure if Kyle has expressed interest in joining the event. So yeah. Anyways, I think that's it. Oh yeah, that's it for the Minecrafters. I don't know if I discuss it here. Kind of. We'll just do this. My hopes for the rest is that the non-canon events see more OTV and Friends and Variety creators get added who haven't already been in. Plus, more especially, this isn't even about newcomers. I want those OTV and Friend players who have already played to play again. That would be great. That's my main hope, honestly. I want the existing OTV and Friends people to play, and then maybe some variety creators could be added depending on what makes sense and what events have, you know, the room for more newcomers. What I think will happen is that there will be some fan favorites added, like Curryway. I did Curryway, etc. because I know, I'm well aware that I am a fan favorite pick for MCC, but I feel a little bit weird talking about my likeliness of getting in because I don't know and I don't want to jinx myself. So, yeah, take that as you wish. If anyone wants any confirmation on whether I know that I'm, you know, going to be in MCC, as far as I'm aware, I'm not on the whitelist. I haven't really spoken to Scott about that much, but I don't think I am, so no clue. I think Curryway makes the most sense. I don't know if Curry's on the whitelist either, but yeah, that's that. I think some Hermits might be introduced. I don't really know how, but I think Doc M77 and Azuma have a chance of getting in. I think some past Rising players like Eloise, Heike Hate Me or Ollie, and Grace will get to play. I think Chilled Chaos has expressed interest, and I think his friends will make an effort probably to get him in contact with Scott. So I think there's a chance that Chilled Chaos will actually play. I think it's most likely for a non-canon event, though, maybe a charity event or something else. I think Skizzleman has a chance of being added as well. I don't know if they've expressed interest in MCC, but I think it's a safe prediction to make as someone who potentially could make their way in. And I think there will be OTV and Friends and Among Us crew members added to the events, but only in the non-canons, and I think that's great. I think it makes sense to separate those types of players from the canon events unless they specifically ask to join the canon events. Then obviously they should get a chance to play the canon events. So that's that, and that is the entire thing. Oh, also, final, maybe a little bit sour way to end the prediction. I don't think Tango Tech or Mambo will probably play. And if one of them plays, it's probably Tango Tech as a one-time player. That's my prediction. Anyways, let me save this real quick. Thank you all for watching. Those are my predictions for MCC Season 4. Let me know your thoughts, and let me know if you agree, disagree, if you have predictions that I didn't mention, etc. I guess I'll also throw this out. I obviously did not touch every single topic that will be that is relevant in terms of updating MCC. Stuff like UI changes, quality of life changes outside of games, or like hub changes, etc. are things I don't really think about much, but obviously I do appreciate it when the Noxer do make those changes. I don't really know which elements of the event can be further upgraded, as I think the event looks really good. But I mean, there's probably going to be some changes made to either like the texture pack. Maybe there's going to be new models. Maybe there's going to be whatever, right? Anyways, thank you for watching. That is, those are my predictions for MCC Season 4. It's a 46-minute recording, and I think that covers about everything. Thank you all for watching. I have no idea what we're going to be back with for tomorrow, but yes, that's it. Thank you for watching. See you later. Goodbye.